So we've talked about big gifts, small gifts. Let's talk about how people give. And there's a critique that there's just way too many amateur efforts in philanthropy. What did you uncover in your research?
Well, again, that's, I understand where that comes from. I just used the word homemade. I mean, that kind of grassroots philanthropy. I'm sure some of you have seen that bumper sticker, it'll be a great day when our human needs are all fully funded and the Pentagon has to hold bake sales to buy bombers. You've probably seen this. Well, you know what? Bake sales are not a bad funding mechanism. I've got some great examples in the book about amazing things that happened out of really what seemed to be pretty kind of humble starts. I mean, what would be an example today? How about the breast cancer work that was funded by Nancy Brinker, through walks and runs? That sounds kind of homemade and kind of well. Guess what? That has been a really big influence in knocking down breast cancer in this country. Oh, here's another great example. Some of you might have noticed that Ted Stanley died within the last couple of months. Ted Stanley made several $billion selling like collectible plates and figurines. Okay, very easy to caricature that is. That's bake sale, homemade kind of, crazy philanthropy. Well, Ted Stanley had this notion. He came to the conclusion that the government was massively underfunding research in schizophrenia, what else? Bipolar and some other mental illnesses. And people would say, well, does he have a PhD? How dare he? Why would he when an amateur like that get involved? Well, that was his conclusion, and he put his money where his mouth was. He ended up spending about $850 million to try to improve the research in those areas. Did any of you notice in January there was this thrilling announcement? The Stanley Center, which is in Boston, that he funded, announced that they now think schizophrenia, this huge complex of syndromes, which is a torture for about 3.5 million Americans, schizophrenia is probably caused by one aberrant gene, they've decided. And if you can fix that, you're going to change life for a lot of people. So this is an example. I mean, you can't be a smarty pants. You don't know in advance where some of these homegrown efforts are going to lead, but the track record is pretty impressive.